and it's the same with like She's on the Money Victoria. She studied a psychology degree, and now she's she's like this amazing like businesswoman, and she's like financial advisor, you know. So very different fields, but then
especially in our brown like culture.
Yeah.
I think which is very different to like the Australian culture, what we see today. In our culture, we're expected to be married, have kids, and have a stable career, have a house by the time you're 30.
30s is like, you know, old people, you know, like no one cares about them. It's just...
You're just basically dead.
You're just like 1 foot in the grave.
Mind you, like my mom at this age, like at 27, she had me. And look at me. I'm still a child. I don't know how I'm going to have a child.
And he was like, oh, because you're Thai, right? And I was like, no. He was like, oh, what's your background? I was like, Sri Lankan, man, very different, you know? I don't know how I look Thai to you. I've never got that before, you know? Respecting the traditional custodians, we acknowledge the Turrbal and Kaurna peoples as the original inhabitants of the lands now known as Brisbane and Adelaide. We pay our respects to their elders past, present and emerging, and recognise their enduring connection to the land, waters and culture.
Hello everyone, welcome back to another episode of Brown Girls Down Under. I think this is episode 12.
12, yes.
I'm Dashani, one of your hosts, joining in from Adelaide, South Australia, and I've got Shanali joining in from Brisbane, Queensland. Happy New Year to you, Shanali.
Happy New Year to you as well, Dash. And I think we'd both like to wish our viewers and our listeners a very, very happy New Year. And I think we should say it in Sinhalese as well. What do you think, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Suba Masuda Suba Alut Aurudakriva.
Did you want to do that again, Shanali?
Okay. Oba Samata Same Satuta Piri Subama Suba Sinhala Sahadamila Nava Vasara Kveva. See? I did it.
Exactly. Well done. You deserve a clap.
Yeah, so all of you who are celebrating, I hope you had a really good New Year. And I'm very jealous of everyone at home who got to celebrate. I was having major FOMO over the weekend, you know.
Yeah.
So, I think we were discussing before briefly, but it's not just Sri Lanka who celebrated this New Year.
Exactly. I saw it on TikTok.
Yeah.
Because I thought, like, obviously, like, Indian Tamil people would be celebrating New Year's as well. But then it was surprising to find out that a lot of Thai people, a lot of Malaysian people were also celebrating New Year's at the same time, which I didn't know before, but that's amazing.
I actually had a guy from work come and say something to me in a different language, and I was really confused. I was like, I'm sorry, what? And he's like, oh, I just said Happy New Year to you, like in Thai. And I was like, okay. So.
Okay.
And he was like, oh, because you're Thai, right? And I was like, no. He was like, oh, what's your background? I was like, Sri Lankan, man, very different, you know? I don't know how I look Thai to you. I've never got that before, you know? But yeah, I was like, it's still on New Year, so thanks, I guess. It's the thought that
I'll
counts,
take it.
right? Yeah, I'll take it. It's fine. But yeah, one of my Malaysian friends was saying that they kind of have similar traditions to what we have, where they kind of clean the house from top to bottom. They get rid of old things and get new things. So it's like signifying a brand new year and basically newness and purity and everything like that, which I think is very similar to what we do back home.
Yeah, exactly. It was similar to our traditions because we have on the 13th, these are like what we call the old year, and then 14th is when we celebrate the new year. But yeah, that's similar traditions. You give your house a brand new clean, and then you have all these prosperous times to do everything, like not prosperous, sorry, auspicious time. Auspicious time to eat, auspicious time to go to the temple, auspicious time to go to work, auspicious time to study. All these times, But have you done does your family like properly do all of that?
So when I was back home, because my dad is Sinhalese, but my mom's Burger, but my mom still kind of made sure that we still did all those traditions. So not to like a T, like everything on the dot of time, not that kind of thing. But from the time we were very young, she still made sure that, you know, we had the milk, like boiling the milk, and then the food was cooked at that certain time. And you know, the ganudenu, which was my favorite part, which basically means, you know, the elders give you money. So that was like the best ever, you know, so that kind of thing. But then the timings are so different, because this year, I think the times were in the night, wasn't it? Like the
it was like midnight, I think. 14th midnight.
Yeah, which is so...
It's a bit different,
Different, yes. So, whereas I think last year I was in Sri Lanka when the New Year happened, and it wasn't in the night. It was like towards the evening, I think. So, yeah, the times change every year. But it's just beautiful. Like, I love the traditions. I know that we talk a lot of shit about our culture. But there's also like so much good and like
we only want the good.
Yeah, exactly. There's so much beauty in it as well. And I think now that we've moved away from home, we can appreciate it a bit more, right?
Yeah. But I think so. I've never. So I think my family, once we've done the actual whole thing to the T, because I remember we had some of our cousins, because my mum's younger sister Punchi, she's now Catholic. So her kids don't actually, well, they do celebrate it, but they don't know about the whole traditions and all of that. Obviously now they do, but when we were all young, my mum once hosted New Year's in our place, because she wanted all the kids to know about all the traditions. So she did that once and gave up instantly. but we did all of the sort of like you said, boiling the milk, and then, you know, you oil your hair. Obviously, you know, like mostly you're meant to go to the temple, and a lot of temples do that, do all those sort of traditions in the right appropriate times. But we did all of that, but in our house. But I remember that. But other than that, we just do the basic ones, like the, you know, the cooking and, you know. But you would always have all the, you know, the sweets and stuff, of course.
Exactly.
But, and then one thing we do, like, we like properly do is like sharing the sweets with your neighbors. That's like a whole tradition. Because we lived in a housing scheme, right? So you would have like so many neighbors. Yeah, and then you would, it's basically like a chore, because you have to make like 20 plates of sweets, because you have to give it to all these people,
and you get your responsibility to go deliver.
yes. So you would get dressed in your new clothes and take them, and obviously when you go to exchange this, they will give you food, and then you sit down and talk for 10 minutes, drink, eat, and then come back and do the whole thing for another 20 times. So it's really fun, and obviously it's school holidays at the time as well, so all of your all the neighboring kids are like, you know, it's all holidays for them as well, so you get to play, do all of that. And obviously there's like New Year sports and things like that. It's it's a very vibrant, it's a lively time.
So my dad's side of the family, we have a lot of cousins from that side. I think I've got like 19 cousins. So when we were younger, like from the time we were like very, very young, we would all get together at one of my nanda's houses, one of my auntie's houses, and we would have like a full-blown Aurudutsaveya, right? Like with all the games and I, like, we've got pictures from the time we were like babies, like dressed in all the out of the clothes and, you know, doing the kanamuti and all this, and it was so much fun. Like, we had the best time. But now, like, even though there are a few cousins there, everyone else is just dispersed everywhere in the world. So no one really does that stuff anymore, because there's not enough people to do that stuff. So even my cousins' kids who are younger, they don't really get to experience what we experienced, which is kind of sad. And like, I'm really grateful that I, you know, was able to, and my brothers were able to experience that growing up, because we built like so much love for our culture and for our traditions and family and everything. Like, it was so beautiful, you know?
Well, hopefully wherever they are, they will build their own community, and then when the kids are little, you know, at least in their teenage years, they'll have their little community and find that sort of
Yes,
connection somehow,
exactly.
and that'll be the fondest memory for them. But
That's true.
yeah,
Yeah.
but yeah, it's been
Yeah, but apart from
yeah.
that, how was your week? How did things? I know you had a really busy week.
Yeah, it's been chaotic, fun, exhausting, all of that.
Yeah.
Because over the weekend, we went to Melbourne to celebrate one of our girlfriend's birthday. So she didn't know this. This was a surprise trip.
Oh, nice.
So we rocked up at her house at, I think, Friday night around like 10 p.m.
Right.
I think she knew she was going somewhere because
Okay.
her husband has told her that they're flying because it's her 30th birthday.
Okay.
So she was asked to pack some clothes because she thought that both of them were going somewhere.
Okay.
But she wasn't given, like, she wasn't told where or like what to pack or whatever.
Yeah.
But so we rocked up, but like we couldn't, because her birthday was on the Sunday, which is the 14th, and this was Friday, so we didn't actually want to cut a cake or anything. So I bought like a 10 pieces of McNuggets and then put a candle on it because it was like 10 p.m. and I was so hungry, and I'm like, this is all you're gonna get.
Because I'm hungry.
Yeah. Yeah, and she was told that they were going to fly early morning, and that she had to wake up at 3. So they had gone to bed around like 6 p.m. So she was asleep, and then she was like so shocked. And then obviously, yeah, it was really fun. And then we packed everything to this. We rented a Kia Carnival. I think it's like an 8-seater. It was very spacious.
Oh, nice.
And then, started. And we surprised another girlfriend after that because it was also her birthday earlier that week.
Right.
And she was meant to come with us, but she fell sick. So we had to do like a little social distanced birthday celebration for her. But, we went to Melbourne. I think it was Saturday sort of morning. Not morning, so we went there around like 12:01 because we had so many stops along the way.
Oh, okay.
And then we had the birthday party Saturday night. And I was so exhausted after that trip, but it was really fun.
Yeah.
And then we came back. Obviously, the Sunday we were still there. We had a and then while we were in Melbourne, we went to this Sri Lankan restaurant, and it was also Auradu. And then
that would have been so nice.
I ate so much food. I had like a food coma. It was so much food. I tried everything: hoppers, string hoppers, string hopper kottu, and then like all these fried rices and pol roti. Oh,
yum!
So good. And then we also tried vatlappa.
Oh, the best.
I ate everything. It was so good. And then obviously drove back Monday. Obviously everybody was so tired and full. Like we were meant to leave Melbourne around 10, I think, but by the time we left it was like 1, or like I think it was like 2. Yeah. So by the time I got to Adelaide it was 11:30 at night.
And you didn't go to work, obviously.
I had the day, like I had requested the day off, but then I had mandatory training. Not mandatory, it's a training that I really wanted to go to because it's like it's done by someone external to our company, so you have to book it. Like if you don't do it this time, you don't know when you're gonna get it again. So by the time I got home and went to bed, it was like 1:30. Woke up the next day and went to the training. That's why I'm like so exhausted. Yeah. But surprisingly, the training was really good because it's called a HAZOP training, which is hazardous operations, is what it's shortened for. Because a lot of the sort of work sites we have in Australia, some of them are categorized as major hazard facilities. MHF is what we call them, I think. Depends on, so that category is given, so that classification is given to those sites or facilities depending on the sort of the chemicals that you have on site. So on our side we have chemicals like cyanide, certain high percentages of acid and all of those. But so depending on what chemicals you have on your site, chemicals and certain operational systems, you're given that classification. So even if you're not a major hazard facility, some of the operations that you do can be hazardous operations. So every time you modify or build a new plant or anything, this HAZOP study should be done.
Right.
Because in that study you go through each and every scenario of what could go wrong.
Right.
And it's basically a giant risk assessment to see what are the things that could go wrong, what are the sort of precautions that you have now, and what are the sort of additional controls you can have in order to do this. So you have a lot of people that were part of this training, and a lot of people who would generally be a part of these studies are like a lot of senior engineers or people with lots of experience because they've seen every scenario. But it was, the training was really good and very engaging. It was like this lady, so the trainer, this lady who did this training for us was like a chemical engineer who have had she's had 40 years of experience. And not just in the mining industry, but food and beverage, oil and gas, pharmaceuticals, all over, and she's been all over the world. And she's she tells you a lot of stories, so she gets distracted from the actual course content, and then she goes on tangents, and I'm like,
that sounds familiar.
So that was but she admits to that as well. It's I feel you, it's hard, I know. But it was really good, so that's why it's been so exhausting. But it's been a fun week. What about you? Did you do anything fun?
I mean, if you call going back to work after holidays fun, then I guess.
Different kind of fun.
Oh God, you have I was so sad on Sunday to go back because I knew I had to go back. And because I knew the kids were going to be quite tough trying to get them settled back in, obviously, because they've had 2 weeks off. Their routines, the routines that I worked so hard to build, are now completely down the drain, So I knew that they'll be pretty bad. So they have been. They lived up to my expectations. They're pretty bad. So I'm exhausted.
Are they more energetic?
Yeah, because most of them have ADHD. So that obviously takes it to another level. But obviously they are very energetic as well. They're only 7, 6 and 7. So they just want to do everything. Their emotions all over the place. They miss their mum, and they want to be at home, but they also want to be at school. They're conflicted, So it's all over the place. So I'm quite exhausted, and we are recording in the middle of the week because someone had a very fun weekend, so we can record on the weekend. So we are recording in the middle of the week, but it's just term 2 week 1 feels, and it'll get better. Yeah.
Is there a lot of engagement between the kids? Do they get along? Or is there most engagement is with you?
Yeah, they have their moments. Mostly they do get along. But when the classes are kind of placed, they kind of try to do it in a way that their interests kind of align, because that's what we kind of encourage, social skills and things like that. But I did have a student who was just not really mingling with everyone else. He was kind of getting attacked by the other kids and all that kind of thing. So he was removed from the class and put into a class where he could thrive, which I'm very grateful for, because I was constantly breaking up fights. So at least now he's happy in his own little space. But it just depends, honestly. Sometimes the kids prefer to be on their own. Sometimes they prefer to be with friends. Sometimes they want to be with us. They engaged very well with adults, so they want to do things with us. So it just depends on the day, honestly.
So after they move on from your class to a different class, and then you see them outside of their class, do they still recognize you?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. My student comes to me, my previous student, he hugs me and he's like, I miss you. And yeah, so which is kind of cute. So I mean, I'm just like, haha, don't really miss you very much because it was really tough having him in the class like with everyone else. So I'm just like, haha, feelings not
The
mutual.
feeling is not
No,
mutual,
not mutual, but
unfortunately.
I appreciate the thought, you know.
Oh my god.
But yeah, I don't know how else to say it. I'm just being honest, you know. So
We love it. We appreciate honesty. Honesty
right?
is the best
The
policy.
best policy. That's what we've been told, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, so as I said, I think so one of my girlfriends celebrated her 30th birthday last week. So it made me think, so that's why I thought this would be a good topic for us to talk about as well. So I thought the topic today is like, it's not a very heavy topic, but I thought we'll talk about our life, like sort of in our 20s, and now that I'm moving towards, I'm in the brink of my like 20s, but
yeah.
you're
Hold
already
on
in
to
the 30s club, but
yes.
I thought it'll be good to discuss sort of our experiences in our 20s or before our 20s, what we thought the 20s was going to be, what we thought like our 30s were going to be. I thought it would be a good discussion to have.
Yeah.
What sort of, so I thought I'd ask you, so when you were young, like young, when you were like in your teens, obviously, I don't know if you can say the same thing, but when I was like 12 or 15, I thought 30s was like grandma age.
Ancient, yep.
Yeah, I thought it was ancient. It's you're a baby, you're a teen, and then you're a, cool young adult, and then you're a grandma. That's what I thought it was.
That's the timeline.
Yeah, but I couldn't be more wrong. What about you? Did you have the same sort of idea?
Actually, I kind of did. Because I remember when I was like in my teens or like even tweens, early, like pre-teens. I used to always be like, I'll be married by 23 and, have this big family by 24.
Yes.
And then like 30s is like, old people, like no one cares about them. It's just,
you're just basically dead.
You're just like 1 foot in the grave. You're about to go. But like now, like, and you obviously think that everyone like in like 25 and above have their life together, that's why like they're so grown up, they're adults, they know everything. But now that we are here, I'm just like, I know nothing. I feel like I don't know anything, so it's very different. And if there are like teens listening, trust me, your time will come where you're going to be like, wow, I'm sorry to all the 30, like late 20s and 30-year-olds that I called old.
I know. When I was like, I think I was like 16, I called like people 25, like people that were 25 and above. I called them auntie and uncle, and I feel so bad.
I know.
Like they weren't happy about it, but I refused to call them anything else. And now I feel like shit because now I'm that person.
I am that person. We're becoming aunties, unfortunately.
Yeah. Anyway, but so that's that. But in your 20s, did you feel like you have did your sort of perception change about your 30s when you were in your 20s?
I think early 20s I still thought that 30 was really old. But I think it was mostly because like with our parents, right? I feel like they at our age or like at where we are right now in you in your late 20s and me in my early 30s, I feel like they just had their shit together. Everything was like figured out. They were married, they had like multiple kids, like houses, cars, everything. Like I feel like they were just in a place where the societal expectations were fulfilled, whereas like if someone who was 30 and above was not married and didn't have kids, that was kind of abnormal. It was not the norm, whereas now I feel like people are waiting until their 30s, or like even some in their 40s, to get married and start families. So
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
changed so much. And
Yeah.
yeah, it's just, I feel like because our parents were at that point then we kind of set that expectation on ourselves to be like, okay, this is what I need to get done. But then as your 20s rolled on, you're just like, hang on,
Yeah.
you know, it's
What?
it's not happening. It's not happening.
This timeline is not the same.
No, it's not. It's not. You know?
Exactly. But I also feel like I agree with you. Like, our parents had their life sorted. They were settled by the time they're 30, whether they liked it or not. It wasn't
Exactly.
almost like it wasn't their choice. They were just
Yeah.
told that this is the norm, and they just
Yeah.
did. They went with the flow, got married, had kids, and mind you, like, my mom at this age, like at 27, she had me, and look at me. I'm like, I'm
Where's
still a
that
child.
baby
I don't know
girl?
how I'm gonna have a child.
I'm basically a teen mom, right?
Exactly. I feel like I need to be supervised. I don't know how, like, my mom was like, had the maturity to have a child, because
Yeah.
I feel like at this stage I still need to be supervised,
Yeah.
because I still let my intrusive thoughts win sometimes.
We all do, sister.
But yeah, that's, and I think especially in our brown like culture,
Yeah.
I think, which is very different to like the Australian culture, what we
Yes.
see today is like, in our culture, we expected to be married, have kids, and have a stable career, have
Yeah.
a house by the time you're 30.
Yeah.
And which is very unrealistic at this time and age,
Absolutely,
because
yeah.
of the economic conditions, the financial conditions in our
Even
culture.
if you wanted to do it, it's just not possible, you know?
Exactly, very unrealistic, and you will have to work twice, thrice as hard to
Yeah.
achieve that, and sometimes you may still not achieve that, because
yeah, exactly.
it's that much harder to achieve those things. And I feel like people are at different maturity levels at the time. So if you take like your mum at the age of 20 or 25 and you at the age of 25, I feel like you both must have had like different maturity levels.
Definitely.
Exactly. And it's also a bit different from someone who's migrated to another country at a very, like in your early 20s or even your 20s, because I obviously came to Australia when I was 20, and then I pretty much spent my 20s in Australia. And I, like, than an average Sri Lankan girl in their 20s growing up in Sri Lanka, I feel like I was sort of forced to sort of mature or like grow up
Faster,
because at that age I had responsibilities and sort of goals and everything, a lot more pressure to have my have my life together than what I would have done if I was in Sri Lanka. So, which I don't mind, by the way. I do love it because I like that. I feel like I had time to get a good grip on my life because I went through that phase, which I like. I like being in control. I like being organized. I like that I'm prepared for the 30s or like for the next stage of my life. And I love to, like, I could make my mistakes very early on so that now I'm like more prepared. But I don't know if you agree. I feel like in the Western culture or the Australian culture, it's more forgiving in your 20s and in your 30s than our culture. Because I feel like a lot of people are just like, even when it comes to relationships, they're like, they don't want to commit to anything in their 20s. No. They after they're 30, that's when they're like, oh, maybe I should settle down, or maybe I should find a stable relationship, which is not the case in our culture. Would you agree?
Yeah, 100%, definitely. And like I was watching this Australian YouTuber, like I think she's like in like 23 or 24 or something, and she was talking about this whole thing, and she was saying like she doesn't see herself, like she's been with her partner for like years and years, but she was like, I still don't see myself like getting married until my early 30s and kids in like my mid to late 30s. Like that's kind of the mindset that she grew up with. So that's what she wants, and like that's what her friends want and stuff. And like we like, well, I say we, but like in Australia they don't have that kind of pressure. Like they move out quite young, they move out of home.
Yes.
But still it's not like moving out to get married the way we in Sri Lanka do, you know. It's
Yeah.
like you don't move out unless you are married, you know. I mean, I
Yeah.
heard, I did hear though a few people tell me that it is changing a little bit, but I think it's still in their late 20s to early 30s kind of
Yeah.
thing, like
Yeah.
not really in their early 20s kind of thing.
Yeah.
You're still very much under your parents. But here, like when you're 18, most kids move out and do their own thing, but they don't really move out to get married or have kids. They move out to,
Yeah.
you know, continue studying or like working
Exactly.
or save for a house deposit. Or so the cultures are so different, just
Yeah.
like crazy different. And it's quite a shock, like coming from our culture, coming here
Yes.
and seeing that. It's just, I mean, obviously we adapted to that and everything, we're fine with it, but if you come from a very sheltered kind of upbringing, you come into this, you're just like, wow, like people actually
Yeah.
live together with their partners before getting married,
Yeah.
which is like kind of unheard of in our culture, you know. So
Yeah.
it's very different.
And I think it's got, like, I know where our culture's coming from, because obviously the parents are very protective and very nurturing and almost don't want to let go of their
Yeah,
kids
yeah.
until they're 100% sure.
Yeah.
Which has both like a good side and a bad side to it. Which I think one thing like we fail to understand, or like we struggle to understand as like brown parents or parents in our culture, is that kids need to make mistakes in order to learn.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And you'd rather they make their mistakes in their early 20s rather than going into late 30s and, you know, like not sure what to do with their life.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
but yeah, that's like a very interesting scenario. Yeah, so I thought we'll also talk a bit about sort of our learning, but also mainly like our career expectations in our culture versus also the Western culture, but in our 20s versus our 30s. But I think you made a good point earlier about as well here. I feel like from my experience, I remember when I joined uni first, there was this guy in my class who was in his 40s, who had just started his engineering degree. He was a chef before.
Wow.
Which is like a very career, like a very, like a big
different.
career jump. Yeah, exactly. So, and it made me think that that's like so good. But whereas in our culture, like in Sri Lanka more specifically, we're expected to know what we want to do by the time we're like
Straight
16
out
or
of school.
17.
Yeah.
Exactly. Because if you wanted to do engineering, then you have to study maths. If you wanted to be a doctor, then you have to study biology stream.
Yeah.
And then if you wanted to do anything else, you have commerce, and then, you know, you have your art streams and all these. But I feel like the age 17, I don't know if you've got that much knowledge to just like the
absolutely
maturity to
not.
decide what you want to do for the rest of your life.
Yeah, exactly.
You know?
That's the thing.
Yeah.
It's so different, you know, and like you say, like there's a teacher aide at my school. She's like close to 60. She's in like her late 50s. And she's still, like, she started studying her teaching degree, which is, I mean, a bachelor's degree in teaching is 4 years. That's a long time. So I think she's like in her second or third year. And she's still doing, so when she graduates, she'll be like 60. But that's really normal, and the school is very supportive and everything. And I feel like in the 20s here, people kind of do, I mean, this is obviously not everyone, we're kind of generalizing, but from my experience working, like, you know, I've worked in retail, and I've had a lot of young people work with me, very young people, like still in school. They kind of have very different aspirations to what we had growing up. Like, some of them want to be like, you know, study acting, or like be a botanist, or like just like the most random things, or like, you know, like produce music, or things that in our brown culture would be just like disowned.
Exactly. If I tell my mom's like I want to be a botanist, she'll be like, try again.
Mokak.
But yeah, what, I don't even know what that means, so try again.
Yeah.
I don't hear engineer or a doctor or a lawyer.
Yeah,
I don't hear that.
That's the thing, you know? So it's like, whereas here kids are like encouraged to kind of pursue their interests. And like, if you take a uni brochure and look at it, the number of degrees, like the areas, it's crazy. Like some stuff we haven't even heard of, right?
Exactly.
Like it kind of sounds made up. Like it sounds fake because they're so different. It's
ceramics.
Like, yeah.
How is that a degree?
I know, it's like, who is studying this stuff? I mean, good for you. I'm very happy for you. But like, who is studying this stuff, you know? But like we were talking before in Sri Lanka, like, you know, obviously you are expected to know what you want to do. And then those who enter local university, you can only enter local uni. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. I'm guessing this is how it is still. I'm not sure if it's changed. But to do a bachelor's degree, you can only enter straight after school. But if you're obviously doing a master's degree as a mature student, then you can, you know, after experience, you can go back. But if you're doing a bachelor's degree, it has to be only after school, straight into the state university system. And no one can, you know, go back and study again or anything. Like, none of that stuff exists, right?
Yeah,
as
I
far
don't
as
think,
I'm
like,
aware.
let's say if I was, like, 40 and, like, I wasn't, like, I haven't done STEM or anything. But if I'm 40 and I all of a sudden I wanted to be an engineer, I don't think it's possible in
that's the thing.
Sri Lanka.
Yeah, you
whereas
just have to
here
do it in
you
your
can.
next life. Yeah.
Yeah,
You just have to
exactly.
be reborn and just do it.
Yes, reborn. And remember that you wanted to be an engineer.
The same aspirations and you become an engineer.
Exactly. Which is
so
crazy.
Yeah.
Because if I were to do, like, let's say, like, okay, I'm now an electrical engineer, but let's say if, like, tomorrow I decide that I want to be a chemist, it would be because I'm, like, truly passionate about that. And I feel like if I were to study something now, it's because I really want to and I'm passionate about it, and I'm and that way I give it, like, I fully can commit to it.
100%.
Exactly. And I think that's the best way to learn, isn't it? Definitely, like, not because you are asked to do this, not because you thought someone told, like, you thought because everyone else is doing it and this is the best option, not because like, people say that you can earn a lot of money doing this. That's not, those are the wrong reasons to study something, which I think a lot of brown kids do because,
absolutely.
Yeah.
Definitely.
But yeah, that's, and also I feel like in your 20s is the age to experiment things, is the age to, even when it comes to your career, as a graduate, you can just jump into different industries, you can jump to different roles and try, and if it's not working out, just get out, move to a different role, just try to find what roles would be, like, beneficial, what roles takes out the best out of you, what roles play to your strengths, and what are the things you can improve on, and try different things. And that's, and also why
another point I want to, sorry I interrupted you,
but all good.
Like, when I was listening to She's on the Money, like the podcast we recommend all the time, what they say is, so, you know, with our parents' generation, they went into a job and then they stuck in that job literally for the rest of their lives, you know. And obviously there's perks that come out of it, like, you know, long service leave and all that kind of stuff, you know, that comes out of it. But then also you are kind of restricted to that, where you can't negotiate your, you know, further pay or things like that. So She's on the Money really encourages kind of jumping between jobs to be able to then talk about your previous experience and negotiate your pay, ask for a pay rise. And a lot of people have had heaps of experience on that. And I think that is something that a lot of the older generation kind of looks down upon, like millennials and Gen Z, for it, because we do tend to do that and they just don't see that. And they see that kind of like disloyalty, or, you know, you're just, you know, you're getting bored or like something. They just find a way to like blame it on us, you know, in some way. But they don't realize that there's so many perks that come out of that.
Exactly, yeah.
By
And I think
jumping between.
loyalty goes both ways, right?
Oh,
as much as you're
absolutely.
loyal to the company should be loyal to
Should be
your
loyal.
your professional growth. So one rule I think I live by, and I think everyone should live by, is like whenever you're in a role, you either should earn or you gotta learn. If you're not getting either of those things, time to jump the ship, because at the end of the day, you should be in a role, like if you're not growing, or if you're not, like, financial reasons are valid reasons to stay in a role, like even if you're not growing, but if that's satisfying your financial needs, that's good enough for some people. And that's completely okay. But I think one thing you also need to understand, especially now that we're talking about your 20s versus 30s, like a lot of people graduate in their 20s or even the early 20s. So as graduates, that's the time for you to learn. Because I wouldn't worry too much about the money. But that, you know what, it's definitely it's their personal choice. That's for some people, financial independence is more important than their professional growth. And that is totally fair. But I think as graduates, like, most people would encourage them to prioritize their learning or their growth, and expanding their skills or their knowledge in their respective fields, over money. Because when it comes to, I think when it comes to your 30s, then you would have develop your emotional capabilities along with those technical capabilities, so that you're ready to be in a leadership role. You're ready to lead a team. You've got enough experience to mentor other people. So that's the idea behind that. But I think I agree with what you said. You need to put yourself first. And as much as, like, it's good to be loyal to a company, but you need to be serving your purpose at the same time.
Absolutely.
And I think it's quite a trend now that you don't necessarily, like, a lot of people don't stay in a company for over 2 years. If you're not getting promoted, or you're not getting that experience, or whether it's financial or, you know, your growth experience, I think it's completely justifiable to, like, you know, explore other options.
Definitely. I agree.
And I think, so like we said earlier, like, I think a lot of people say, like, 20s, like, in your 20s, you can explore all these career options. You can even, I think, because you've got the financial, I think in Australia, because you've got this HEX debt, or like HEX help, pretty much, for your studies, for your higher studies.
Do you want to just explain that briefly to those who don't know?
Yeah, I think so. In Australia, you get sort of, you get a student loan, pretty much, is what it is for your higher studies. So everyone's granted that. Every Australian citizen's granted that. So when you go into uni, so they don't have free education, free higher education. Or free education. In Australia, free higher education, right? Because they still have public schools.
Public schools are free, but, like, tertiary education's not.
Exactly. So the government funds everyone's tertiary education, and you're free to choose whatever the field you want to work on. And then once you graduate and started working and earning above a certain threshold, you're gonna start paying your HEX debt back. So that's what called HEX. I don't know what the abbreviation actually stands for. I think it's like
higher education something. I'm sure MJ will put it somewhere here what it stands for. Yeah.
HEX, higher education student.
I think it's called, like, help now. I think they've changed
exactly.
the name. Yeah, it's called, like, a help loan or something. But it's basically a loan from the government to study.
Yeah, exactly. Which I think is sort of, I think it's good in a way, because then you encourage people to study what they actually want, because then they tend to take it a bit more seriously, because you're going to be eventually paying for this, right? So you might as well learn something that you can earn money, but also at the same time do what you like to do or what you enjoy to do, which is, I think, good. And the country benefits from it, so they can improve their tertiary education institutes, their facilities. especially in the technical industries. Whereas, and that sort of keeps people from moving into another country and like spending their money elsewhere, right? So that I like in my perspective, that's good, because then it provides everyone with equal opportunities to study whatever they want.
That's
Whereas
the thing. I think that's the biggest thing, the equality factor of it, because everyone has that opportunity. That being said, though, the interest rate on the repayments has gone up considerably. And I've been reading a little bit about it, and I've seen people kind of discouraging other people from studying because the loan is quite high at the moment. I think it's something like 7% or like some quite high 7%, amount.
I think,
So I've seen people trying to discourage others from studying it, but regardless of that, you know, like I think it's just a great opportunity. The fact that it's equal and fair and everyone gets that, whereas back home it's kind of like the smartest of the smartest will get that opportunity.
And it's not even that. Sometimes I feel like, look, it's definitely is education, but the assessing system is not the most, I don't know, productive, most efficient way of you can't make someone study for 3 years and test them on a 3-hour paper and decide this person is the smartest. It's definitely like, look, I'm not in any way degrading that. Like, I think people who go through are extremely smart and they totally deserve that. But I think you might be losing a lot of people who are equally smart and who's equally capable of, you know, being engineers, doctors, lawyers, and all of those. But now, because of the wrong filtering system, you're just casting them away to other countries and, you know, spreading that talent somewhere else. Talent
losing,
and money.
like brain drain, right?
Exactly. So I think there's definitely better ways to do it than how we do it now. But I think with the interest rates going up on those HECS loans, I think what sort of people are more inclined to consider now is like, if someone's wanting to do like a ceramics degree, they're actually made to like rethink, I'm gonna be spending 40,000 or probably not $25,000 on this degree. Am I gonna be able to repay this? Exactly. Is that the made to the? I think there's pros and cons about it. But at the same time, I don't think it should come to that. But at the same time, you shouldn't. That is what I'm saying. I'm not saying it's bad to do ceramics. I'm saying it's okay to do ceramics if that's what you want to do and you're truly passionate about it and you're 100% convinced that you have the creativity and the skill to make a return on this investment. But you also have a lot of people, and I have a lot of friends who started nursing, done that for 2 years, given up, done teaching for 2 years, given that up. And, you know, people jump from, and like, you're just collecting debt. That's not the way to do it. And I guess to avoid those kind of things, I guess maybe the interest rates going up is like a good sort of validation, or maybe extra step of validation and verification on whether you actually want to do something.
But I think that's the good thing about like people here maybe studying later on in life, because if you kind of obviously study straight out of school, like we mentioned, you really don't know what you want to do, you know? Whereas, you know, if you kind of take a bit of a break, you travel a little bit, you work in different industries, and you are a bit more mature and you've kind of experienced a little bit, and then you know what you want to study, then it's kind of like you can then do something that you're actually good at and that you like. And then you are still, like, the society still doesn't look down upon you for going to uni later on in life. Because I have a cousin who studied psychology straight out of school. She did her degree, finished it, and then she realized that she doesn't want to do it anymore. And then she started studying OT, which is like occupational therapy. So she's like an occupational therapist now. So, like, two very different fields, you know? And it's the same with, like, She's on the Money, Victoria. She studied a psychology degree, and now she's like, she's like this amazing like
Financial.
businesswoman, and she's like financial advisor, you know. So
Yeah.
very different fields. But then she says as well that she's got like $150,000 debt or something, which is insane.
Yeah.
But then obviously if she kind of took a little bit of a break and then like straight out of school and didn't study that and then only studied financial planning or whatever, maybe that would have benefited her better. But people are allowed to do that here.
Yes.
Compared to like back home, you're not really allowed to do that, you know.
Yeah,
you kind of
exactly.
study one thing, and then, I mean, yes, it's free if you go to the state system, you study that, and then you are basically expected to do it for the rest of your life, you know.
Yeah, that's right. And I think it's also because in Australia, especially in a country like Australia, you don't need like to go to uni to learn anything. Like you don't need to go to uni to start earning money to get a qualification. You can, and at this day and age, there's so many resources available online on the internet. Like you don't, unless it's something where you require a license, like for an example, law, medicine or engineering, you don't really need to go into it. There's so many people that go to trade school and then can still become like you can still do the role of an engineer, probably even better because they've got the practical experience.
That's true.
And there's so many people that does that on site. There are so many electricians who's got so many years of experience and now are reliability engineers or reliability specialists. They may not get the title engineer, but they do work. They work better than an engineer because they've got that experience on site. So experience plays a big role, and I think that's why in Australia people prefer experience over qualifications. Obviously, in terms of like licensing, you do need that qualification, but not necessarily to get the job done, you know.
Absolutely.
So, and there's so many pathways that you can take to earn money. That's why you don't necessarily. That's why people, I think, enjoy their work a lot more because they're truly doing something that they chose for themselves, not because of any other influence. And that's something I think we encourage, and something I encourage to everyone. Like, don't ask me, like, we get, obviously, with like MJ's channel and, you know, Triangle podcast and all of these things, we get a lot of questions around, how's the job demand for this occupation? How much can you earn for this much? And it's like, don't worry about these things. Like, you know, don't worry about the demand. Like, find out, like, look within yourself, play to your strengths, see what your strengths are, see what your weaknesses are, find out what you do best. Because if you're the best at it, then you can create a demand for it.
Absolutely.
So that's what I encourage a lot of students who come and speak to me as well. So I think that's really
but also I think like with a lot of students from Sri Lanka who come here, obviously they've like on the flip side, they come to get their permanent residency. So then they kind of look at it like, I need to get a return on investment in terms of, you know, one thing money, but also permanent residency most importantly. So I understand that being there as well. You know, that is a tough call. But if that is not of concern to you, and if you just do something for the sake of it, and then you expect to, like, you know, work that for the rest of your life, trust me, you're going to be so depressed. I can tell you right now. You're going to like hate yourself. You're going to hate your life. So it's really not worth it.
Yeah. And there's more to life than just work, right? And
100%.
You know, and if you, and there is, I say that, but then you also spend a lot, like half of your life at work, like half of your day you spend at work. So it's a lot. So if you're not truly gonna enjoy that, do not choose that for yourself, because it's gonna be so draining. So it's going to take a toll on your emotional health, your mental health, and that's not something we recommend. So
no, definitely. So yes, I think another important aspect of kind of growing up is changes in like our physical and mental health from the time we were, you know, teenagers and then 20s and now like 30s. I think no one really prepares you for that, I feel like. Because I feel like I don't know what it was. I'm sure it was the same with you, but I was like, if you're talking only about physical health, I was like a stick basically for like my whole childhood. I was so skinny.
Yep.
And I just had like, I was just like this tiny body with a big head and a lot of hair. I had a lot of hair. So it was like, I looked like an alien because I was just so like not proportionate at all. And then even in my like early 20s, I remember like my 21st birthday. Oh my God, I look so sick because I'm so skinny in it.
Skinny.
But this is like, I ate normal, you know, I didn't like diet or
Yeah.
anything. I was completely eating like normal. Like I used to just eat so much chocolate but you just burn it really fast, you know?
Yeah.
And then like the older you get, I think maybe after like 25, 26, I feel like
Yeah.
my body, I don't know what happened, you know, you just kind of
Slowed down.
Yeah, like your metabolism slows down and like,
Yeah.
and you're not prepared for it because you kind of still think, oh, you know,
Yeah.
you'll have that same metabolism, but no, like even like the slightest things you eat, you tend to, and this is not me trying to, you know, like make food look bad or anything. Absolutely not. Like it's absolutely important and everything, but then health becomes more important, you know, taking care of yourself. And we discussed this in our last episode with Dr. Shahana. You know, as women, like we need to, like after 25, we have all these tests that we have to do to take care of ourselves. And, you know, we need to work out more and do those kind of things that we were sort of not prepared for in our like teenage years and early 20s. How was your experience with that?
Yeah, same. I agree. I think I came to Australia when I was 20. I still remember I was 42 kilos.
Oh my God.
I was basically a stick, basically a
Underweight,
chopstick. Yeah, exactly. I was underweight. I have been underweight for, I think, now that I'm, more than half of my life.
Yeah.
I have always been underweight, and everyone else, all my life, everyone has been asking me to eat. I've been asked to eat peanut butter and dates because apparently that
really?
helps you put on weight and all these. And trust me, I wanted to put on weight because I was like so sick of being skinny.
Yeah.
I was so sick of everyone doing this to my hand. But yeah, I really wanted to put on weight, but I was never like controlling what I was eating as well, because I would eat like 4 or 5 meals a day.
Oh, wow.
And I would, because I guess like you
just
know
burn it
we just
faster.
had high metabolism, and also I feel like in Sri Lanka you sweat a lot. I feel like
Yeah,
your body
that's
works
true.
a bit harder than
Because
I don't
we
know,
used
but
to,
then
I
again,
feel like
you're-
we used to eat like rice and curry 3 times a day.
Exactly, man. Exactly. We would eat like and coconut milk with every curry, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know what
Yeah.
what was happening there, but and then but as soon as like I said, I remember one time, or I remember this so clearly because I had just like come to Australia, and this was like my first or second semester, and I came out of my, obviously Melbourne's very cold. And windy during winter, and this was winter. I came out of my uni library. I had my laptop in my like uni bag or school bag or whatever, and then I was walking, and it was very windy, and I remember I couldn't walk a straight line because of the wind. I kept it kept dragging me to the side. That's how lightweight I was. And I was like, oh my God. And I felt like this was like a safety risk. Maybe I need to have like something heavy in my bag to like, what if there was like a tornado? I would, exactly, this is ridiculous. But now I'm like, and somehow the metabolism stopped, and not stopped, but it slowed down.
It slowed down,
But also at the same time, I think in like the uni days, I worked a lot more. Like I was quite active.
Like
so
physical work.
I would still, exactly. I would still eat a lot of food with like all this coconut milk, yellow rice, like all this heavy fatty food. But I would, at the same time, because I was very physically active, I would burn it without even knowing. And then once I just stopped working like that, that's when I started to sort of see the physical changes. Even like I remember when I first moved on to like a desk job, I weren't as active as I used to be, and then even if I climbed like a flight of stairs, I used to be so out of breath, and I was like, what's going on?
Yeah,
You know?
yeah.
Yeah, so I think, and I feel like in your early 20s as well, you know, you think you're as healthy as you can be.
Yeah.
You think that's the prime of your life.
Yeah.
And you don't necessarily pay a lot of attention to
Yeah.
your health or
Yeah.
supplements or exercise or
Yeah.
what you need to be maintaining.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, when you're getting closer to your 30s, that's when you're like, oh, I need to watch I need to make sure that I get the nutrients.
Yeah,
I need to make sure that I exercise and get all of these done. But which isn't necessarily, like, it shouldn't be the case, but I feel like in Australia, there's a lot of importance given to your health, maintaining like a healthy lifestyle, like an active lifestyle. From a very young age. Everyone's encouraged to do sports. There are people playing sports even when they're 60s who's in great shape, which we don't necessarily see in our culture.
Absolutely
because
not.
Everyone's so focused on like their career or their studies, and they don't there's not a lot of...
For a country that really fat shames people, I think...
I know!
I feel like there's like not really much focus on, you know, exercise and all that kind of thing.
Yeah. I think we need to realize you can't fat shame people and have rice and curry 3 times a day.
I agree.
And encourage people to, you know, pursue careers and education equal. Like, you can't do all of it, people. Just pick a lane.
No.
Pick a lane.
Like, if you want to fat shame people, just do that, okay? Just stay in your lane and fat shame.
Exactly. You can't just do that, but also want people to, you know, do other things. Like, and I think it's very important to encourage, like, you know, maintaining this active lifestyle.
Movement, encouraging movement.
Exactly, and that's why we get, like, as soon as you hit 40s, you've got all these heart problems, you've cholesterol, you've got diabetes and all of this. And one thing I don't have kids, and I don't have like really close friends who have kids, but I know some people, they don't let their kids have like sugar or anything here at a very young age, which is not the case in Sri Lanka. People like, kids have ice cream, babies have ice cream, and all of those things. Which, look, I don't know the pros and cons of that, but I feel like people make it a point to educate kids, their children from a very young age about the healthy, balanced diet and all of those things, which I think we have an upcoming episode where we would discuss this into detail with a professional. But would you agree? On
100%,
that?
Absolutely. Like you said, there's a big focus on like healthy eating, and schools here have this thing called fruit break, where kids, you know, have fruit in their morning tea, so that kind of thing. I mean, and like there has been a little bit of backlash because some teachers, I mean, obviously the school like starts this on the government, like it all kind of comes down the chain, but children or students who bring in food that's like snacky food, like chocolate and whatever, like unhealthy food, the teachers kind of write to parents and tell them, you know, to encourage them to send healthier food. So there are some parents who obviously take it a good way, but there are also some parents who are like, no, it's my child, I can do what I want, that kind of thing, you know. So there's a bit of, you know, backlash from parents and blaming the teachers when it's really not the teacher's fault. You know, it's a weird space. But the fact that the government or like the higher authorities actually care enough about that, I think is amazing. And like physical movement is such a big part in school life. Like kids have days to like cross-country days and things like that, where they're really encouraged to participate in activities, be physically active, like do things, which I don't know if like that's, I mean, I'm very thankful, like me growing up, my mum was really, really big on like us doing sports and physical activities. Like I feel like my brothers and I, we did everything. Like we did dance, we did swimming, cricket, everything. And then we also did the other things like elocution and that kind of thing. Like we were so busy, we did everything. But I feel like a lot of my friends didn't really have that, you know. So I think because like I grew up swimming like constant, like swimming was like my sport. So then I kind of carried that on in like, later. Like I don't swim anymore like for competitions or anything, but I still really value physical movement, and I try to get in my movement like at least minimum 10,000 steps a day. I try to go to gym every day. I try to walk or run every day. And my parents are really big on that themselves. Like they're in their 60s now, but they still do yoga and movement. They're really, really big on their health and movement. So we kind of saw that, and we are following their path, which I'm so grateful for,
and it's very easy to make it a habit once you do it for a longer period of time.
And then you kind of get addicted to it, and then you can't like break away from it.
And my grandfather, for an example, he's now 80. He's in his 80s now.
Yeah.
And ever since I've known him, like he goes on 2 walks a day, a morning walk and an afternoon walk. He's 80 now, and he's losing his memory a bit. Right. So we don't want him to go on walks in case he get lost. But he's so stubborn. He's addicted to it. He cannot.
That's the thing.
He will wake up at like, before my mum wakes up, he will wake up at 5:30 and go for a walk. And then he would walk for at least 1.5 hours, so 3 hours a day. And that's amazing at his age. And I think he's fit and well, and he's been like even like mentally competent until like very recently. I think it's because of how his active lifestyle, and he's always watched what he eat. He's always avoided sugar and all of these things. Obviously everything in moderation, completely fine, but I think we need to admit that our human bodies have limitations as we age, and we need to, like, prevention is better than cure, right? So we need to be aware of how our bodies age and what our bodies need, what our bodies needs are as we age. But I also want to touch on, like, do you feel like your energy levels have changed in your 20s?
Oh, absolutely.
Going through your 20s?
Absolutely, yeah. I think, definitely. And doing the kind of work that I do now, which is a very physically demanding job, I require a lot of energy, and I definitely don't have the levels. I feel like I need more rest. Whereas back then I was able to function on like 4 hours of sleep and I was fine. Now if I don't get like a minimum of like 7 to 8, I'm just so angry at everyone in the whole world,
I heard someone else talking about the same thing, whereas they said that in their 20s they could possibly function with 3 hours of sleep, but now like in their 30s they can't. But it made me think, like, do you think it's because like in our 20s we're like, we don't have like professionally or personal responsibilities at that age, so you're like either learning or you're just working in a job where, not obviously this is generalizing, but most of us are like in uni or learning or doesn't have like professional responsibilities that rely on you. So do you feel like we could function with 3 hours of sleep because you didn't need that much mental capacity or focus, whereas in your 30s or late 20s, you have jobs that require your full focus, so for that you need that sleep?
Could be.
Interesting.
Definitely. And I think
I agree.
Also, like, mental health is like very important, like something that we really need to touch on. Because obviously coming from brown culture, because mental health is so taboo, no one really talks about things. I mean, I didn't grow up knowing what depression was. Like, I just knew there were like quote unquote crazy people and normal people, like I feel so guilty, like even thinking about this now. So Angoda, like the mental health hospital in Angoda, it used to be kind of a joke, right? Like we used to just joke about it, be like, oh, you're gonna get on the bus and go to Angoda because you're crazy. Like it was just such a joke. But like now, like thinking back, and you obviously know the actress Shanudri in Sri Lanka. Like recently she did like this event for New Year where she celebrated with like these patients, these
Oh,
mental
really?
health. Yeah, for New Year. She does this thing like for all these big sales, which is like so impressive.
Oh.
Like I really
Yeah.
really like her as a person, and like I really value the things that she does, even though she does get a lot of backlash. I don't think she deserves any of
Yeah.
that. She does a lot to you know, this basically this event, she celebrated New Year with these patients at this institute. And like a lot of people were kind of really appreciating her for it, because not many people actually go and celebrate those things with people like that, you know. So
Yeah.
like growing up, we kind of have had this thought process that, you know, they were just crazy people, you know, haha, it's a big joke. But like now, like after, I feel like, and as migrants, like going through the things that we've been through, we have come to realize how important mental health is, and how
yeah.
we really need to prioritize it and focus on it, and
Yeah.
you know how it affects a lot in your life, right?
Exactly. And especially like, I feel like as you grow older, as you go into your 30s, you need, like, you can relate to that a lot more. You know how easily someone can burn out.
Absolutely.
You know how easily someone can be triggered. So you have this sort of like you almost relate to them, or like have that understanding is
Yeah.
like, oh, like and you know that this can happen to you anytime
Yeah,
if you don't take
absolutely.
care of
Yeah,
yourself, and if you
definitely.
don't take the necessary precautions. You're like, this can easily be you.
Yeah.
And it's not someone's fault that they're like that. It's because it's just the experiences they've
Yeah.
gone through.
Yeah.
There's nothing stopping that from happening to me
No.
tomorrow.
Exactly.
If like
Yeah.
yeah, exactly.
And it's also like
So-
hereditary is the thing. Like it's not always like the
Yeah.
experiences you go
Sometimes-
through. It could be like family, you know, things like that could happen.
Yeah.
And also I think with the growth of social media, like the comparison culture, you know, like you really tend to compare. Like I'm so grateful,
Yeah.
I feel like, to be where I am, where I didn't really grow up with social media, because I feel like that would have really, like the comparison thing would have really affected me. But whereas now,
Yeah.
even though I tend to compare, I'm still able to talk myself out of things like that.
Yeah.
Whereas I feel like if
Yeah.
I was very emotionally mature, I probably wouldn't be able to do that as much, you know? So,
I think I went through a phase like that. So I think, like in my early 20s, especially, you know, once you're an international student, you go through different challenges that maybe none of your friends would go through in Sri Lanka, and you grow up seeing this in social media. And then obviously I found myself comparing myself to those people a lot, because you're like, you constantly doubt yourself if you've made the right decision. Why have you done this? Why have you made this? Is there a light at the end of the tunnel?
Yeah.
Would you ever be able to? And that can really bring you down. But I feel like as I grew older, now that I'm in my late 20s, I have the emotion, like you said, the emotional maturity to now talk myself out of it. But I think that's something that's the sort of growth, the emotional growth that you see as you move, as you slightly, you know, grow from your 20s to and closer to your 30s. You wouldn't think that there's much of a difference, but there is.
There
like
is,
if
definitely.
once you are 30, once you're in the 30s club, and now you look back, some of the choices that you made, some of the situations you've handled, how you handle situations as a 20-year-old, you're like, yikes, I wouldn't do that again. That wasn't the best. But I like, at the end of the day, you shouldn't still, like, those experiences made who you are. Like maybe you've got you are where you are because where you, like, the sort of experiences you went through, and you needed to make those those mistakes in order to learn that wasn't okay, or that wasn't the best way to handle things.
Definitely.
But I do understand where that's coming from, because I feel like, especially like talking about this mental health and this emotional well-being, I feel like in your 20s you're very sort of receptive of any sort of criticism you get, or any sort of, and especially being in a country where, you know, your closest that you've got is your friends, like they're your family, and when you have those relationships, they're everything to you. And some friendships, some relationships won't necessarily be won't necessarily add value to your life, aren't the best things to your health or your journey, and then I remember like in your 20s, you're very scared of letting these relationships go, letting these friendships go. You're too scared of hurting people, even if like holding on to them might do more damage than, letting them go. But you're over, I feel like in my 20s, early 20s, I was very much of a polite person. Especially coming from that culture where you're asked to respect your elders, like no matter what wrong they do to you. Whereas that sort of has changed now. If I feel like this person's not doing anything good to me, I'm like 100% okay with walking away from that person without being like, if there's someone I don't want to hang out with, like I don't feel bad about like moving away from them. And I think when you're going into your 30s, you're very much wanting the quality of life. You have a big focus on your emotional health, your physical health, and you want the quality. You're very much invested in the quality of the friendships, the relationships that you have in your life at that point, because it's quality over quantity, and the time, the sort of timelessness, the everything about. Even when it comes to, I feel like I thought of when I was thinking about this topic that we want to talk about, I was just thinking about my fashion sense in my 20s. I was like, it's all about crop tops, flashy tops, everything neon. Whereas now I'm more like, I'm more into timeless pieces now. Yeah. Like, it's just more about quality than quantity. So, yeah. Would you agree about, like, now that you're in the 30s club, would you say that you're very much invested in the sort of quality of your friendships rather than...
definitely. I think quality, even with fashion, like you were saying, I find myself buying more, like, basics that I could maybe pair with different things where, like I could use it more, timeless.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and obviously I'm thinking a bit more about like sustainability and that kind of thing. So
exactly,
like it's a complete mindset change, like from your 20s where it was just constantly trying to please other people and like look good on social media and all that. Yeah, fitting in, but now it's just I'm doing things for myself.
Exactly.
To make
you put
myself
yourself
happy.
first.
So there's a lot of good that comes out of it, apart from your physical, your back hurting all the time. I've just accepted.
Who needs a back?
Yeah, I've just accepted that my back is always just gonna be hurting. So that's fine.
Just take some painkillers and you'll be fine.
Exactly. I'm just like but see that again, like now that my back's like hurting, I know obviously with the job I do and everything as well, I've got into yoga now, so I'm like pushing myself to try something different because I know that in the long run that will help me. So it's like finding things to kind of mitigate the problems that come with your age. Yeah,
and you have the appreciation for your the energy you've got and the appreciation for, because as you grow older, you feel like you tend to understand that you're not here forever, and you tend to like not give not worry too much about these things you can't control, and just make the maximum, like make yourself happy and your surroundings happy and make the maximum out of everything while you're still here, right?
I agree,
and
And also, like, this is something I tell myself and, like, Ryan as well when we're like, oh, my God, we're so old. Like, if we live to 80 one day, we are going to look back and be like, imagine thinking that we were old at 30 years old. Like, we were just babies. Like, maybe one day if we're 80 and we're doing this podcast, like, we're going to be like, oh, what were we thinking? God. We were little infants.
Exactly.
So...
I was like, look at those opinions we had. Like, how naive were we?
Exactly.
Like, we would be like,
Exactly.
Well, yeah.
But I feel like this episode's like been really good. Like, we didn't really think that we'll like have much
cover that much content.
Discuss. Yeah, I feel like we've gone a little bit over our timing as well. So maybe it's time to just end it here.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's been a really fun episode, talking about.
Yeah, very insightful, very I think sort of good things that we shared, like very insightful episode. But yeah, I also want to take this time to sort of celebrate that we've hit 1K subscribers. I can't believe we started this in February and it's been 3 months.
I can't wrap my head around the fact that 1,000 is like, I mean, to some channels it's gonna be like 1,000, like that's nothing, but it's like 100 people into 10. That's how many people have subscribed. That's so cool.
Yeah,
that is so cool.
And mind you, this is a podcast, right? So it's not like visually engaging or visually stimulating. It's all us conversations,
just
you know,
us jabbering. Like, so
exactly. I guess we're very interesting people.
Yeah, looks like it, right?
Interesting.
I mean, compared to another podcast run by 3 boys, I feel like
I know. Clearly, this is more entertaining.
Looks like it.
Clearly, we're more fun and entertaining.
So thank you so much to everyone for that. Thank you for all the love and the support and sharing. We really appreciate it. We are trying our very best to get, content that would really add value to you guys and have guests. I'm really excited about the next 2 guests that we're going to be having on the show.
Yeah.
And I know that they'll add a lot of value, but we'll continue working on that. But we just ask you to keep supporting us and giving us your love and your suggestions and everything. We truly appreciate it.
And I think, I also want to highlight that we would like to discuss like a question, like one of your questions in every sort of episode. But so we do really want to encourage, send us your questions, especially I think if it's easier if you send it to us through Instagram so that we can both access and read and maybe discuss some, and even if you've got like those your sort of experiences that you want to share, your thoughts on these episodes, these topics that we discuss, so we can share with the rest of the audiences. And if you've got like guests that you would want to see in our podcast in future, tag them, reach out to them, or send their details to us so we can reach out to them and have them in our podcast, so we can discuss all these valuable, insightful things. And we've got a great guest line up for the future, and I'm really excited for it. But it's been a very fun episode to record, but and thank you so much for all your support as always. And we just realized that our manager or like our producer or our editor has just subscribed to our channel. I cannot believe it. I
think we need to fire him. I think we need to fire him.
We need another editor. So send us your CVs, your resumes. We're looking for a new editor, new manager.
Who has actually subscribed to the channel that he's meant to be supporting, so.
Exactly, He's been telling us, you need to do this to increase your engagement. You need to do this.
And with us. And look at him.
And when... Exactly. Like, this is unacceptable. But anyway... subscribe, comment and share with your friends, and also follow our Instagram accounts, and reach out to us anytime with your questions, suggestions, so that and your experiences, so we can share with everyone and be supportive.
Absolutely.
So, thank you so much for
Thanks for listening, guys. Take care. We'll see you next week, I guess.
Next week.
Yeah, cool.
All right.
See you.
See you.